I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Kennon, world-renowned architect. Please enjoy Kennon. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Kennon, world-renowned architect. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mari. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for me.
I am super excited to chat with you about creativity and everything that goes into your work and how the creative process shows up for you. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Sure. I'm an architect and I'm based in New York City, although I do work all over the world and I've had a great career doing that. I've designed everything from skyscrapers to bathrooms, and you name it in between. Um, as we sort of talk, maybe there's some anecdotes I might be able to share about my work, or maybe not. But however it goes, I guess the only other thing is that my work is in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art, and I think maybe that gives me a little bit of an edge into your podcast here. So
Absolutely. I mean, that's amazing to have work as in a permanent collection in an art
yeah,
museum.
yeah,
And and I know you do a lot of work with sustainability.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about what was that crossroads for you? Because not all architecture is sustainable. And
But although buildings do account for 40% of greenhouse emissions, so a lot of
yeah.
people think, they don't really think about buildings that way, but especially in big cities, but everywhere it's obviously a problem.
Hmm.
Um, I don't, I honestly, I don't like to use the word sustainability anymore
Mm,
because I think it's become overused to some degree, and it's lost its meaning.
sure.
Um, and I think for a lot of people, they hear it and they think it's somewhat pejorative now, and it becomes a barrier to conversation.
Hmm.
So I'm really much more interested in using terms like regenerative.
Oh, okay.
And instead of sustainability, I think one of the difficulties architects have is just communicating what their value is.
Mm,
Um, and I think a lot of architects have, over the past 20 years, have kind of seen sort of advantages in becoming specialists in certain
mm,
areas, like
hmm.
technical specialists, and that's how they've been able to generate work.
Hmm.
Um, and I think what we're missing is that what architects have traditionally been over the years are visionaries. I mean, we basically see the future.
Yeah.
Everything we do, whether it's a house or a giant building, that we have to convince people to spend a lot of money
Hmm.
on essentially a bet on the future. You don't
Right.
know how it will turn out, but you hope that it turns out the way you do. Hopefully it does for most people. But let's face it, it's a real pain to get. If you've ever done any of this, it's a real pain to get from A to B.
Yeah.
Um, and I really enjoy working with people,
Hmm.
at many different levels. I enjoy the fact that architecture is a collaborative enterprise. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a solo sort of artistic endeavor. We're
Hmm.
not locked with garrets and coming up with, incredible artwork. We have to rely on hundreds, if not thousands of people
Yeah.
who I think if they're motivated and they share that vision and they have pride in their work and what they do, it just always turns out better.
I love that. Absolutely. And thank you for differentiating between the sustainability and regenerative and
Yeah.
that piece, because I think maybe on my podcast, sustainability makes more sense, but I understand
Yeah.
that. I'm curious, within your life and the architecture career and world, when you think of creativity,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you to be creative?
Yeah. Well, so there's somebody, and it's been attributed to many different people who once said that architecture is frozen music,
Oh.
um, and and I really believe that to be true. That you experience architecture in many ways, like you experience the first piece of amazing music that you might have never heard before,
Mm,
and it evokes similar feelings. It works at a very emotional level.
hmm
Architecture does. It's subtle. It does not sort of hit you over the head most of the time. Sometimes it can be a little much, but for the most part, it sort of sneaks up on you, and all of a sudden, you're in this space, and sometimes it takes your breath away, and or you see a building and how it sits in a landscape, and you're just you kind of marvel at, how did that get to be here? Who are the people
hmm
behind it? What were they thinking?
hmm
Everybody's lives, but we don't talk about it that way, and it's unfortunate. So architecture is frozen music, um, and it's a great way to think about it.
It is. I love that.
Yeah,
It shifts my whole perspective of looking at a building or something
yeah,
in a home. You brought up kind of the emotional pull of architecture on people. As someone designing a space, how in touch with your own emotions do you have to be to evoke a feeling or an experience or an expression for others to receive?
well, you can't do it without clients, first of all, so you're
Sure.
working for somebody else.
hmm
Um, and I think a big part of our job, and sometimes where we fall down, is that we tend to listen too much to other architects.
Mm.
A little bit of a conclave, I guess, of experts. And we all have our kind of obtuse language. And I think that is off-putting to a lot of people. It's like, what are you talking about? We don't get
Mm.
it. How do I want to hear what you have to say, but I don't understand it.
hmm
So, I like to think of a big part of our job is just translating
Mm.
what our clients' visions are or feelings are, or helping them, realize something that they may not essentially know, but it's a
hmm
journey, it's a process, and if we can feel good about your guide, which that's kind of what I am, is
hmm
we go through this journey together, and hopefully at the end, it's something that you're proud of.
Yeah. The collaboration experience. I'm curious, what happens for you when things don't go as planned or challenges crop up and the client's vision may not be able to be executed in the same way?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Well, it's tough. It's a big part of the job, and because things always go wrong on some
hmm
level, best laid plans sort of, and
Sure.
kind of situation, and they have consequences. So what we
hmm
try and do is spend as much time upfront in design,
hmm
going through those scenarios, and we have amazing tools that can
hmm
do that. That essentially come as close as possible to replicating reality at even the most detailed level. And I really am a big believer. It costs a little more to do it. I'm not an inexpensive architect, but
Sure, sure.
I tend to work with very high-end clients. But if you do it that way, what happens? And I explain to it. It's like invest a little more in making sure we really have everything, and we visualize everything so that you can see it up front. And
hmm
now we can even feel it. We can animate it. It's AI has given us some amazing tools, which
Yeah.
I work with every day. Um, and I also am a big believer, because I'm also a developer, I'm a big believer in maintaining the budget, understanding what that is. I try to bring in people I like to work with who
hmm
build the project, so get their input from the beginning. So, because the mistakes when you're during construction can cost gazillion dollars,
Right.
versus when you're in design and it's just, sketching on a pad of paper, which is maybe, hundreds of dollars. So,
Hmm.
that's where you try to ensure as much as possible that things happen the way you plan them.
Hmm.
And so sometimes that means, well, we're working on this stuff together, let's say people's houses, and they kind of fall in love with the house, and all of a sudden we find, it's going to start to cost a little more. Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, or I think there was another one with Tom Hanks in it, but similar thing. But where basically it was called The Money Pit, right?
Yes, that I've
And that
seen. Yeah.
and that, yeah, but I highly recommend the other one. It's
Okay.
got good Cary Grant and Myrna Loy, so it's a fabulous movie. But it can become a money pit where you're
Hmm.
just shoveling dollars into this enterprise, um, and that's what I try to avoid as much as
Mm.
possible.
Hmm. That makes sense. And having the design piece, that's where all of the kind of creative choices get made versus once construction starts. That's a little harder to.
Well, and there's always some guy on the construction side who's, tries to get the owner's ear and say, I could have done that for, some like old timer, yeah,
Sure.
why are we
Yeah.
doing it this way? Um, but that's all, just part of what I think is the fun of the project, because I relate to people on many different levels.
Yeah.
And I enjoy working all over the world with different people,
Hmm.
um, and helping them achieve their vision.
I love that. I want to ask about kind of early life for you. When you were growing up, was architecture always this thing that you wanted to do? And what was your earliest
Well,
experience of creativity?
yeah. So I'll tell you, I grew up in California,
Hmm.
um, outside of LA. It's a place called the Palos Verdes Peninsula,
Hmm.
uh, and it used to be where Marineland was. They tore that down. But anyway, so we lived in this area called Portuguese Bend. And what happened in Portuguese Bend about in the 1930s is that it was on the sort of downhill slope directly over the ocean. It's a beautiful community, a little bit like Topanga Canyon or Laurel Canyon. Um, and they were doing some engineering work at the top of the hill, and it caused a slide. So one half of this community I lived in was sliding into the ocean, and the place where I grew up wasn't.
Oh.
But they put a moratorium on the whole thing.
Hmm.
So all the houses, everything that's there, if I go back and visit it, it's exactly the same. It hasn't changed at
Hmm.
all because of that moratorium.
Hmm.
But you were aware of the fact that you were kind of living on a landslide, um, and that just changed your whole attitude towards um, being at the edge of the world,
Hmm.
and being in a place where you have a visceral encounter with the natural forces, right?
Hmm.
You have a different appreciation of how nature works
Yeah.
and how much grander nature is than human beings.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's part of, I think, that just kind of um, that experience sort of just became part of who I am, and I think I just took off from there. Didn't
I
plan
love.
it. I didn't
Didn't
really
it wasn't
plan
planned.
it.
When you think about, early experience of creativity, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Well, my parents were very um, supportive of any type of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever, I mean, we just different art classes, and
Hmm.
um, but at the same time, it was also, I was really in love with sort of nature and sort of
Mm.
hiking and surfing and scuba diving and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And so I think it was just somehow there's a combination there that just got into me. It's weird that I ended up living in New York City all this time, but I even think of New York City as a kind of giant landscape in a way.
Yeah.
It's got its crevices and cliffs and all kinds of things, and it's a better way to think of cities sometimes is to
Mm.
imagine them, as landscapes. Uh,
Hmm.
and don't, then get over the sort of it's urban versus rural, just see it in a completely different way.
Mm.
Um, so all of that kind of mingled together, and so and really it is creativity is the thing that keeps me going.
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of the inner little power module I have. And I'm not happy if I'm not creating. It
Mm.
really is a symbiotic kind of thing. So, and I think we all have that capability. All
Hmm.
kids are born are creative.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet one that's not on some level.
Sure.
And somehow sometimes you just lose it. Um, so and I and what I think is one of the upsides of the world we live in, which is
Hmm.
online social
Yeah.
media, is that you're exposed to a lot more creative stuff every day.
Mm.
You go on to
Hmm.
Instagram, you follow the right people. There's amazing things that are happening all over the world that you would never be able to see. I don't even know what we did. I guess it just went to galleries or something. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that's good too. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nothing like real life,
Right.
and architecture is real life. Um, but
Hmm.
I think there's so much out there to inspire people. So,
Mm.
and it's very good for everything, your well-being, mental health.
I
Uh,
agree. It's so important
yeah,
finding things that inspire you. I'm
yeah.
curious for you and your career, the work that you do, what are the favorite pieces or the most enjoyable things for you to design or put into, add to the world in terms of design?
Well, I've done a couple museums, and those are
Mm.
always fun because
Yeah.
then you're really working with art. I've also worked with clients who have amazing art collections,
Mm.
so that's great. So I love art, and I love doing the research as part of it,
Hmm.
and having that research sort of infuse itself into the work.
Mm. Okay.
But but it's but I just think it's the experimental process, and I've been fortunate that I've had clients who repeat clients over the years,
Mm.
supported my experimentations, even even though some of them were a little wacky. Um, but that's okay.
Hmm.
It's great, and the people work for me love it. It feels a little bit like they're back in school.
Mm.
And and the getting people invested in what you do, creativity, and unleashing their own creativity, having them have a sense that they're making a mark on whatever the enterprise you're doing, is it's the most satisfying part of my work.
Mm.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. I really appreciate that kind of invitation. It sounds like you
Yeah.
offer your colleagues and people who work for you
Yeah.
to tap into their own creativity in a deeper, maybe more meaningful way than some other individuals designing things out in the world.
Yeah, and people, and that includes my clients, and also just people who are interested in architecture. Anybody can contact me anytime. You can find me on LinkedIn. My first name is Paul, and I have to use, although I go by Kevin Kennon, because Paul was my father's name, and so they named me Kevin, and just in order to be verified on LinkedIn. I have to put Paul in front of it, so it gets confusing to some people. But if you look for Paul Kevin Kennon on LinkedIn, you can find me and DM me. I'm happy to help you in
I
any
love the
way.
invitation for
Yeah,
people to reach out. That's so
yeah,
important. Yeah. When you think of like I wonder when you work with individuals and they feel like, oh, I'm not the creative one, you're the creative one. How do you elicit ideas or vision out of someone who feels like they don't have any creativity?
I think this is I really think the thing I like least about Western culture is that we tend to create, everything's oppositional. It's like you're this, you're left brain or your right brain.
Hmm.
And generally people are somewhere in that spectrum. I've yet to meet a fully left brain person. I don't even know if I want to meet a fully, but
Sure.
uh, um, but so it's just tapping into that,
Mm,
spectrum a little bit, and just stopping, just not trying not to categorize people and try to meet them where they live,
mm.
So um, that's it.
So how do you do that? How do you meet them where they live?
Talking to them, you
Mm,
know. I mean,
hmm.
I try to do as much sort of one-on-one, ask a lot of questions,
Hmm.
find out. It's amazing what you can get out of people if you just ask questions, which is what you're doing. And I'm sure this is one of the reasons you're doing your podcast. And this is why I love podcasting. It's such a great way to have a fairly intimate conversation with people from all over the world, and
Yeah.
it's kind of, you feel like you're right there, and it's the whole uh, this new way of communicating. I
Yeah.
think is one of the big pluses from our automated world.
I would agree. It's provided me the opportunity to meet people I never would have met.
Right.
And I'm curious if you were to design something purely for yourself,
Yeah.
didn't have anyone else involved, what would it be?
As my girlfriend will tell you, it's like, I don't know if I really want to design something for myself, only because I would probably spend so much time looking at every corner and going, yeah, what? It's like, I should have done this.
Yeah.
It would just become an endless exercise. Maybe one day I'll do that. But uh,
Hmm.
I think what I'm doing right now, we're developing wilderness hotels,
Hmm.
in boutique hotels. And actually, we're looking at in Colorado right now.
Yeah.
So, and it's sort of like, think of Amman resorts, but on the edge. And so
Hmm.
everything is renewable energy to support it.
Hmm.
Uh, Working with this amazing company out of Texas that can essentially extract drinking water from the air,
Hmm.
which is a kind of new technology and
Yeah.
super interesting. And these are all very light footprint
Hmm.
uh, hotels, um, small, very small, but they all they're on stilts, so they sort of elevate around the land. So we conserve the entire site, pretty
Hmm.
much, just disturb it as little as possible. So
That's
all of it,
exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
I kind of love the wilderness hotel, boutique hotel that
Yeah.
gives quite the image of what to expect in that.
Well, yeah, and we're designing this so that we can replicate it in any kind of environment,
Hmm.
sort of mountains, deserts, islands, forests, what have you. Yeah, so it's fun. It's my true labor of love at this point. So
Yeah,
you asked me that question. I guess maybe that's my best answer.
maybe that's it.
Yeah,
I love the creativity that goes into it to have that
yeah,
the light footprint and the
yeah.
maintaining of the actual land and
Yeah.
how
Well,
that
it's
works.
interesting. Some of my, and also get back about that other question about some people, how do you get that creativity out of people?
Hmm.
Some of the most creative people I work with are structural engineers.
I bet.
So, and they have amazing ideas,
Mm.
um, and it usually just improves whatever it is I'm trying to do. So anyway,
Mhm.
that's all part of it.
No, I love hearing that to, you know, see creativity in other people, I think is a true gift because that allows you to, I don't know, when I see creativity in other people, I feel fueled and inspired to have more creative ideas or try creative things in new ways.
I know. I think that's good. And I think that that sort of curiosity
Mm.
is, I think if you can tap into your inner curiosity, I guess it's your inner child, because
Hmm.
children are highly curious. My
Yeah,
dogs are highly curious.
this is true. Yeah.
Yeah. But, if you can just find a way to tap into that, I just think there's such a, a, a gold mine,
Mm,
that people have within them, that is just all good feelings. So good vibes.
I
So
agree.
anybody listening, I urge you, if you're not doing it already, yeah, pick up a paintbrush.
Tap into your own curiosity.
Yeah, right.
Well, this has been such a treat getting to chat with you. I have one last question.
Yeah.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I mean, it's there. I used to scuba dive a lot. I don't do it as much when I was living in California, and I was getting my advanced certification. And one of the tests they do is they take you out and they put you in a deep area,
Hmm.
and put you all of the people in the class are sitting in a circle, and the instructor will sort of go behind you and turn off your tank,
Hmm.
right, where the air is coming through. Just shut it off, and you can't breathe. And you're instructed to release your dive belt, and you start floating to to the surface. What happens is air you breathe at the surface compresses when you get down to a lower level. So, like, think of a oxygen bubble is that big. As
Hmm.
you rise, the bubble gets bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you're filled. Yeah, it's almost like you become a giant seltzer bottle, right? Of oxygen. You're filled with that as you go to the top. It's the most exhilarating feeling you could ever have, because you go from I'm about to die to wow, I'm living, and wow, am I living? And that's what it feels like.
I love it. I have a visual of what that is, and it sounds very effervescent in
Yeah,
terms of
effervescent.
that
Thank you. That's the perfect word.
yeah, that experience and feeling.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want
Oh,
to
well,
learn more about your work,
yeah.
how could they go about doing that?
I think the easiest way is just to go to LinkedIn. And there's all kinds of links on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm also on intro.com. You can find me there. But LinkedIn is the easiest place. So Paul Kevin Kennon at
Mhm.
LinkedIn. And that's it.
Perfect. Well, I will put that link in show notes so people have very easy access. They can just click on it to find
Yeah.
you. And thank you again, Kevin, so much for taking the time to chat with me. This has been such a treat.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Mari. Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.